Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the show tonight. It's What's Happening Dracut. It is Wednesday, September 1st, 2021, and we are raring to go with another edition of What's Happening Dracut. Folks, we want to thank you for joining us this evening. We're going to give you a lot of information tonight. We're going to try our darndest to give you what we think is the truth. We're going to keep the pace fast, stimulating, and hopefully controversial, because that's what makes us go, right? According to our enemies, anyways. But we have a great show for you tonight, and you can join us a number of ways, folks. You can join us by coming on Facebook, which we are Facebook Live right now. I don't know, are we on?
I got it.
We are on, okay, because I'm not on my computer yet. But we have, we can also reach us on DracutTelevision.org, which is Dracut Access Television's live streaming page, and you can get that, and you can go there and look us up, and we're on live right there. You can also, email us. Gordy's going to talk about how we're on YouTube. We've got a whole lot of things. We're trying to get into Instagram because we know that someday we may have to go to those other platforms.
Oh, they're trying.
So, folks, we're on our way to a great show. And first, let me introduce my man about town, the guy who gets out and gets some information for us. He's always around town. He's always doing his thing. He's a man on many committees. Let me introduce to you our co-host, Phil Thibault. Phil, how are you, Phil?
Very well, thank you.
Everything
yourself?
going well with you?
Oh, just wonderful. Work, this, family, it's just life's a dream. Life's a dream.
Phil, we know that your mom hasn't been feeling well, and you've been going through a little bit of a struggle there with your mom.
That's true, and thank you for all the prayers that everybody has been giving.
Yeah, we want to ask our...
I was with her today. She's doing much better, so signs are looking up, and certainly appreciate, again, all the prayers and well wishes.
And we hope to continue those prayers coming, folks, for Phil's mom. Great lady, unlike Phil, great lady. But you know how that is.
Well, I hope Phil's not a great lady.
No,
That would be it.
But you never know what he's going to be. He might identify as a great lady today.
There's a lot of that going around.
And then we won't have him sitting next to you because we know how irritated you get with
wow.
that. Speaking of co-hosts, we have our young Cub reporter with us tonight who's becoming more of a host. And I'll tell you, the more we learn about this young man, the more impressed we get. For a 17-year-old kid, he's got everything going on for him. I'll tell you right now. I mean, his folks, I say this a lot, his folks should be very proud of him. He does things around town, and he's been taking on a lot of mantra of different issues here. But this kid is going to... I hope I live long enough to see you on NBC, ABC, maybe not CNN. Richard Silvio!
Yeah, I'm Richard Silvio, and I'm doing really super.
How's
great
the
to
folks,
be here.
Richard?
They are doing absolutely fine. They're a little hesitant about their show tonight with this groundbreaking report I have here, but we're going to get into that later on.
You got that right. That's a little tickler, folks. That's called a tickler. Stay around. But I want to switch gears now to our host extraordinaire, the Teflon host, or otherwise known as Teflon Gordy Scott, in the house.
How's everyone doing?
Everyone's great, Gordy.
So I know our prayers are with Phil's mother, and my sister-in-law is not doing well. She has stage 4 cancer, for those of you that know my wife. And so my wife went to visit her today. She's in good spirits, and she's holding on. But, unfortunately, I don't think she's got a whole lot left of life. So she's trying to stay comfortable now. So, any prayers you guys have for us, we'd appreciate those as well.
We send those prayers out to your sister and also to Jen, your wife, who's a great person, a great individual, unlike Gordy. But but I think the Teflon extends to Gordy off of Jennifer. But anyways, we do send our best wishes and hope for an easy transition for you and your sister, Jen. But moving on, Gordy, you have a lot of things to talk about too tonight, right? We've got the COVID report.
We've got a COVID report, especially for Frank.
Yeah. We did away with those COVID reports for a little while, but we're coming back because we want to be able to tell people exactly what's going on. Some of this stuff, I do not think that we are, what do you call it? That COVID is not real. I think it is. What'd you say, Richard?
Oh, we were gone on Facebook for a minute, but we're back.
It looks like we're back.
Yeah.
So.
So the
Facebook is trying to get rid of us,
the
too.
Facebook gremlins are out there, you know? But anyways, before we get started and get into the meat of what we're going to talk about tonight, we've got to introduce our resident weatherman, who is absolutely phenomenal at what he does. If you watched him over the last few weeks during the hurricane, he gave up to the minute, up to the second reports, and he really tied it in. He works for Channel 7. Let's have our local 7 or 8 day, 10 day, whatever he's got prepared for us, report on the forecast. Take it away, Sean Kelly.
Hi, John. Thanks for having me once again. Here's the forecast for tonight. Clouds were moving in today, and then as we head into tonight, rain is going to be in the area, and will be heavy too at times, especially as we head into the overnight hours and into Thursday morning. For tonight, winds are going to be coming out of the southwest at 10 to 15 miles an hour. Could even get a gust up to 20 miles an hour as we head into the overnight hours. And then as we head into Thursday, tropical downpours, and that is going to be the case between 1 and 3 inches of rain. Could even be a little bit higher than that south of Boston. Anywhere between 3 and 5 inches of rain is likely as we head into Thursday. So again, some much needed rain during the week, of course, not on the weekend. We're going to have a nice weekend coming up. And then as we head into Thursday night, we're going to drop it back down into the 50s, partly cloudy. The winds are going to diminish to 5 to 10 miles an hour. And here's a look at your exclusive 8-day forecast. So again, Labor Day weekend coming up. Very nice weekend. Temps are going to be in the 70s as we enter Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Right now, there is a slight chance for a few showers and even a few thunderstorms as we enter the second part of Monday. And that's the forecast for now, everyone. Back to you guys in the studio.
So that 8-day forecast looks like an awful lot of, a couple days of rain and an awful lot of
At least we're in the
clouds, huh?
70s, no more 90s. That's
No
good.
more 90s, but we're getting into the fall weather pretty
Right.
soon. So now maybe I can catch up on that spring work that I wanted to do in the spring. I can do it.
When in the spring it was 90 degrees.
I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. It was just too hot. Yeah. But we want to thank Sean again for giving us that forecast. He's a great kid, great guy. He's also going to be doing, I believe, some live shots coming up in the very near future. Stay tuned for that. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But Phil, first, you have some special greetings and announcements for us tonight.
Yes, so one of the first items that we have is we're certainly coming up on the solemn 20th anniversary of 9/11. And I know that we're having our Dracut Home Day coinciding with this on the same day. So I know there'll be special events during Dracut Old Home Day. The Dracut Old the 5K race is going to be happening, but I believe they were scheduling a special memorial for Old Home Day. I'm not sure, to be honest, I'm not sure if there are other events going around town.
They normally, the Old Home Day Committee, which is headed up by Sandy Kuna and Ken Kuna, along with others, they normally have some sort of commemoration on that during that day, because as we know, that 20 years ago.
As a matter of fact, the very first Old Home Day was the Saturday after 9/11.
Yeah.
So I mean, they coincide.
And they kept it going, and there was a tribute then, and there's been a tribute to
Yeah,
that.
there was a lot of talk whether they should cancel that first event, and they decided that it would be better to host the event, memorialize what would happen, and certainly dedicate it to the memory of John Oganowski.
Yeah, and of course we understand that the Oganowski family is, it's a very solemn time for them, a very hurtful time of the year for John's wife and children, as well as his mom and sisters and brothers during that time. So we pay special tribute to that during that day, and if you go by on, what is it, on 113 or 110, there's an Oganowski.
Route 113, next to the Jones Ave Fire Station.
Right, and which is right across the street in the same area as the Oganowski homestead, right?
That's correct, and there's a very large memorial to John in the square.
Did you know John at all, Gordy?
I did not know him, no.
No. And Phil, did you serve on any committees with Gordy, with John?
I
at the time?
had not. My father knew him fairly well through different organizations in town, and he spoke very highly of him.
You know, when I first moved into town, John was pretty active in a number of different things around town, and one of them was the agricultural committee, if I'm not mistaken. And you know, great guy, nice guy, very intelligent. He was the pilot, folks, if you do not know, and sometimes you have to keep reminding people. I'm
It's
sure
been
Richard
20
won't
years
know
now,
that.
yeah.
It's 20 years, but he was the pilot on the first plane that went into the Twin Towers. So we pay our respects to the Ogonowski family on that. Phil, what else you have?
An announcement, John Crowley, who has served on the Zoning Board of Appeals for, I believe, 40 years.
Wow.
Has announced, I say his retirement, because serving that long, I hate to say he's resigning, because it seems like it has a negative connotation. He has served the town of Dracut very well for 40 years. As a matter of fact, when I was on the planning board, I served, we had, I think, one of the first dual committee meetings between the planning board and the ZBA when a project for Walgreens at the corner of Mammoth Road and Lakeview Ave was coming, because there were a lot of issues that were being involved. I coordinated with John, who was then the chairman of the ZBA, to actually host a joint meeting that had never been done before, and we both agreed, let's get the common stuff out of the way.
Did that Walgreens ever go through?
It never went through.
Why was that?
Well, there's certainly some political reasons. It's
typical
just the way,
Dracut.
typical the way, yeah. So I mean, one of the things that was being looked at was and upgraded the traffic lights at that intersection.
Right.
They're antiquated. They're still antiquated. Some, I don't know, 10 plus years later. But
in typical fashion, that went down in flames, because God forbid we should build anything in Dracut that's going to give the taxpayers a little bit of a relief. God forbid we should do that.
Absolutely.
We have to have stuff that's non-taxable.
So
right?
So I also served with John on the town manager screening committee, and I have to tell you that was a fantastic committee. There were 5 great people on those. Well, I'll say 4 because I'll leave myself out. There were people who will probably
there's
say
people
I
who
was
will say
not a
you,
good
yeah.
committeeman.
They'll want you to prove you're a
But
great
I thought
person.
John was just fabulous on that committee. Very thoughtful. Very. It was a solemn duty that he knew he had, and he did it to the best of his ability. So certainly I thank him for his.
You know, Phil, I couldn't, just to follow up, I couldn't have said it any better than you, but John Crowley is one of those guys that when you meet him, you know he knows what he's talking about, and he did a great job. And that's not a popular board to be on, because the Zoning Board of Appeals is there for people who are appealing your zoning bylaws, and they most of the time follow the law, and the law says no.
Yeah.
And I don't think, I would love to see the amount of appeals of his record were overturned.
No, not many.
I'm
Not
gonna
many,
guess there
because
weren't
he was very diligent. He's very thoughtful in his deliberations.
You may not have liked what he said or what he did, but
But he was very clear on where his points were coming from. He had a great amount of institutional knowledge about Dracut and just the zoning and whatnot around
and there's
town.
another guy that for all these years doing what he did took abuse.
Oh, absolutely.
Took abuse from the
Absolutely.
political sources, took abuse from a lot of
Yep.
other people outside. And
Yeah, we want this to go through, and
Yeah.
it's like, no, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm doing the right thing.
So unlike in Lowell, where the manager who appoints some of the boards, they ask you, can you follow directions? John wouldn't have been able to follow directions.
No, absolutely not.
If he was told
No,
to
and
vote a
to be
certain
honest,
way.
I think if somebody approached him to tell him what to do, he would say, "Who the hell are you to tell me what to do?
Exactly.
I'm doing this for the town."
So, we have,
well,
that's one more thing, that's right.
I have another thing. Our community development director, she's been with Elizabeth Betsy Ware.
Yep.
She's been with us for, I think, five or 6 years now. She announced her retirement September 30th. So at the end of this month, we will say goodbye to Betsy Ware.
Oh, that's she's been somewhat of a controversial figure.
She has. To be honest, having worked with her through my professional career, we're trying to do stuff in town, also on the master plan committee. I have to admit, I think she's done a fabulous job. She knows her information. Again, when people want to shove things through and they meet a roadblock like that, who wants to do it the right way, she takes a lot of abuse.
Yeah.
But I certainly thank her for the service that she's provided to the town of Dracut.
That's great. So, those are our announcements, and
Well, I
You have one
suppose I
more?
have one more because
go
it's
for
not
it,
listed
Phil.
here.
That's right, you do have This will be a shocker, but
This will be a shock.
we'll see how long
So,
this lasts.
recently we had Dan Phelps that was hired as our Economic Development Director.
Yep.
I met him today. He came to my office. Unfortunately, I couldn't sit down and talk with him because of an emergency. But I had asked him if he would come on What's Happening Dracut, and he said yes. So so we're arranging for our next show that we have Dan Phelps on to talk about economic development here in Dracut.
That will be an interesting show to
I
have
thi-
him
yeah,
on.
I think it'll be a great show.
I think it'll be a great show, sure. So we wanted to let the folks know that if they want to join in the fun, they want to make a comment about anything we're saying, as long as you agree with us, 978.
That's the way it's supposed to work, right?
We don't want you to agree with us. We want you to call in if you don't agree with us. 978-957-4243. I want to shout out to my good friend John McDonough, who I hope is watching tonight. Great guy. We had a Monday night dinner club. We went to the Longhorns, and we had a great dinner. Phil usually joins us.
Yes, I wasn't able to make that one.
Yeah, but you'll hopefully make the next one.
Yes, I'm
and
planning
I
on
don't want to tell them where the next one is, the folks, because some of our viewers might want to come and sabotage our dinner. So we're not going to. And I'm sure that there's people in Lowell that would want to sabotage our dinner.
I'm sure.
But we had 12 people the other night.
Wow.
Well, it's
Good
growing.
crowd. It is.
It's getting back. Pre-COVID, they used to have a lot of people at the dinners too, but
Well,
now
great company, great conversation.
Yeah.
About anything you can think of.
no lack of opinion sitting at
No,
that table.
geez, no.
We could do a 2-hour
And
show.
you better have an opinion when you're sitting at that table.
Yeah, you got that right. But if you want to call us, do it whenever you want to. And I know that Gordy might have a fan call in today because he's been handing out $20 bills to get people to call in. 978-857-4243, right, Gordy?
Right.
So
We'll see.
let's move on to our first thing of the day. We had Richard Silvio, we
Yes.
had the rededication of the World War I Memorial. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, so that was on August 14th. So it was a while ago, but we had the emergency come up with Cabal, so we had to push some things aside, which we'll get into later on. But yes, so the rededication of the World War I monument at Hubby Square, it was a wonderful day. We saw a big turnout, larger than I expected, actually. The monument looks wonderful. We had a wonderful flag design in the ground, which you'll see it's a 5-point star with 164 flags, one for each man who was on the plaque. It was all around wonderful, and I prepared a little video for you guys so you can see how great it was. So if we could take a look at that now, please.
Okay, we're
Oh.
waiting for the video.
The World War I rededication video, please. Technical difficulties.
Gremlins. All right, we're
was
going
a
to move on. If they find it, bring it up and let us know that you found it, all right? We'll move on for a minute. Let's talk about schools because we're going to get right into
Yes.
Dracut politics and Dracut happenings here. Schools about... You don't have that video?
Oh, I did the...
Did you get it to him?
Yes, I spoke with Ron. That's...
Was it Ron's? Ron? Did you send it to Ron?
Yeah, I sent it to Ron.
You got to send it to Nate too.
That's interesting. Okay, well,
Okay.
after the show.
So we'll bring that on the next show, okay?
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about schools, right? Richard, you're starting tomorrow.
I am, that's correct.
And how are you going to feel about wearing a mask full time?
I am very frustrated, really.
Yeah.
We went through that entire thing last year. You could barely breathe. It was a very depressing atmosphere, and for what? For nothing. As we're going to get into tonight, masks actually do very little. So to have to know that and go through what we're going through, especially with the community support, we went out, we had the protests, we did all that stuff, and for some reason we were still ignored. So
For the record, you
Yes.
are vaccinated.
yes,
Partially.
I am half vaccinated. I get my second one on September 11th,
Oh,
actually.
good. Wow. September 11th. That's great. What time in the morning are you getting that done?
People, they don't need to know that. I
Oh,
think
yeah.
we'll go down and hold signs or something.
Well, anyways, yeah, right. So the mask situation, as we know, has exploded on the front. And I spoke to a couple of people within the school department that have been explaining and viewing their own frustration with it, particularly people who are in the decision-making process, right? And they are saying they're as frustrated as the parents, but the parents are definitely not letting go. which is what we don't want. We don't want you to let go. We want you to stand up for what you think is right. Now, I'm not against masks. I am vaccinated, and I'm not against vaccinations. It's a personal choice. It's a choice that you should make on your own. Right, Phil? I mean...
Yes, and I have to admit, I have to say that most of the parents that I'm hearing from, it's not that they're against masks. They just want the option. They want to have the ability to choose.
Now, as a parent of a recently, 4 years ago, graduate, Gordy.
Actually, 1 year. Actually, he just graduated back in May. But
from high school, from college, yeah.
Right.
But okay, so tell us how you feel about somebody telling you what you think is right for your kid.
Well, I think it's pretty interesting, and I don't know if we'll get to national politics tonight, but for those of you that are following the Texas law, for abortion law, so anything earlier than 6 weeks cannot be aborted now in Texas. It's funny how I watched a little bit of C-SPAN today in my during lunch, and I noticed that a lot of the Democrats stood up and said, we have to have right to choose, we have to have right to choose, but when it comes to vaccine, it's not so much right to choose over your body, but when it comes to abortion, it's a lot about right to choose.
Because they're saying that abortion doesn't hurt anybody. Huh? Right. Abortion doesn't hurt anybody? I mean,
you can't make this stuff up.
I mean, you know,
I just find it a little hypocritical.
Absolutely. Now, Gordy, you went into that subject, and we can go back to it during the time when we talk about some. Hopefully, we'll get to the national news. But you're right. The Supreme Judicial Court today, they didn't make a decision. They just didn't hear a case. Am I right?
Right.
So that means that
they haven't done anything.
They haven't done anything with it, which means they're probably likely to agree with it. If they're not going to take it up, right?
Right.
They're probably likely to agree with it. So not taking it up is a huge win for the state of Texas, who is seeing an infiltration of people that are trying to take over the process down there. And we'll get into that.
And I am pro-vaccine, just for the people that know. My wife has had it for the last time she took her second shot was over 8 months ago, back in January, because she works at a hospital. So she qualifies for a new dose, but we don't know. That really hasn't been approved yet, so we're waiting to see what happens. But she's pro-vaccine as well. She's going to get it as soon as she can get it.
So Richard, what brought you to go out and get the vaccination? I know that you were fighting it, and for a 17-year-old with a lot of intelligence and the ability to reason within your mind above most 17-year-olds. Your parents, without revealing if they don't want people to know, I imagine your parents are vaccinated.
So yes, both my parents are vaccinated. They got vaccinated as soon as they could, and they really wanted me to get it. And as you said, ever since it came out, I've been very, not anti-vax, but very pro-choice, and I still am very pro-choice. Right. Really, at first, I think it was fear. Because the vaccine was made in such a short amount of time compared to other vaccines. So really, I wanted to wait to see what the effects on others would be. And looking back now at all the statistics, and you see the millions of people who have been vaccinated and such the small amount of reactions from the vaccine, I took that into consideration. I took into consideration how my family members, a lot of them are, at high risk for COVID and high risk for death if they were to get COVID. And so I sat down, I took a deep breath, I thought about it, and I came to the decision that for me, in my personal situation, it was best for me to get the vaccine. But that might not be true for you, or anybody here watching. You know what I mean? It needs to remain the personal decision. But for me, it was the right thing to do. So here we are.
That's good. So some of that fear that you have is stoked by people who want you to fear. Now that's on both sides. No, right. I'm not gonna. There are people who are anti-vaxxers. Are the science is not right. They didn't do enough for the science, right, Gordy?
Right.
And they talk about it all the time, and they're afraid of it. Look at what it's done to people. I mean, we vaccinate people all the time. There's millions of vaccines. If you turn on the TV today, you're going to see a lot more vaccine ads than you are for Viagra. And you know why? Because that's the new thing on the block. The new thing on the block is because everybody's pushing the COVID vaccine and people are hearing the word vaccine, so why not a vaccine for peanut butter? right? Why not a
For a
vaccine?
peanut allergy, right?
Penile allergy, a peanut allergy, right? And there's others. There's the what's the plastic allergy? What's the plastic?
Botox?
No, the one that can get you cancer by drinking out of plastic.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that. I don't know what
PB something or other.
PVC or
PVC.
something.
Something.
PVC,
PBA.
Not
PBA, whatever it
not
is.
PB and
But
J.
anyways, that whole thing is another vaccine. There's vaccines for, vaccines aren't all curables. They don't cure everything, right?
Right.
The flu vaccine changes every year.
Right.
And
It's
it
only
change-
about 40%
And it's only
effective. So
about 40% effective. And yeah, it affects people in different ways, and it hurts people in different ways, and medically and what have you. But for the most part, I want to be able to make that determination.
Right.
And Phil, I don't know about you, but I want to make that determination for my children. I don't want
Absolutely.
some educator who might be indoctrinated into something.
Correct. So, I mean, I know a lot of people push you should get vaccinated to protect people, but I mean, ultimately, you get a vaccination to protect yourself.
Yeah.
And then if you're protected, then what difference does it make if somebody else doesn't have it? You're protected.
So there's going to be a lot of things done and said. We had a young lady on last show, Sarah Powling, and I've been communicating with her off Facebook through private messaging, and she's very, very perplexed about the whole thing. She's upset because she doesn't see the groundswell of individuals coming out and banging the doors down. She was very excited about the amount of people they had at their protest at the school committee meeting. But since that school committee meeting, things have quieted down, which is what the school department wants it to do. They want it to quiet down so that people come in. But she wanted some kind of a protest going in having the kids refusing to wear the masks. Do you see that happening at your level at the high school? The kids will go in without masks?
No, God, no.
No.
As I've said on Facebook over and over again, the high school, I hate to say it, is more or less a lost cause. Whether it's indoctrination or kids are getting it from their parents. Kids, it's not that they like masks, but they're not going to stand up against the mandate. They support the mandate, really.
No,
And
they support what they've been told to support.
Well, yes, they support what they've been told to support, and it's concerning. It really is, because you think about the future, and once they're old enough to vote, I don't want to know what they're going to do, really.
Gordy, don't you think that a lot of this is peer pressure and the fear of what the retribution will be?
Absolutely.
What is going to be the retribution if they
well,
don't wear
it's
a
the
mask?
same thing. I go to work, right? If they ask me, if they mandate that I have to wear a mask, I'm going to wear the mask because
Well, you have to.
I have to pay.
You gotta work.
I got to put food on the table. So the same thing with the kids. I mean, they've got to go to school. They got to get an education. They've got to get if they want to go to college, they've got to get their diploma. So they've got to follow the rules.
Yeah, but they don't have to be told to wear a mask, and you don't have to go to that school. You can go to another school.
You could.
You know,
could,
and
yeah.
I know a lot of private schools that are not mandating the masks, and Catholic schools and otherwise, private schools are not mandating masks. Go ahead.
I think with younger people it's harder because of how cancel culture is so prevalent in the young people's society and day-to-day lives. Like, for example, when we did the police rally last summer in support of the police, we know what happened to me. I was absolutely castrated by my peers. Now, barely anybody in the school will talk to me, and I guarantee you that's why they won't take off the mask, because they're afraid that they're going to be a victim of cancel culture.
Which is bullying.
But I
Exactly.
thought they had a zero tolerance on bullying.
Only for
is-
some things. For some things.
Which, by the way, is a great segue into
It absolutely is.
anti-defamation.
So you know what I have on my phone? So the superintendent of schools, Stephen Stone, as all of you know, sends out a letter every now and then to parents, updating them with the high school and what's going on. And he sent out a specific. Can we put up the first image, please? This is a snippet from the letter that he sent out to parents, or email rather, I should say.
Gonna put that pyramid up?
No, not the pyramid. The first image.
The first image. Which is the school letter. There
Yes,
you
right
go.
here. I have it on my phone here because it's kind of cut off up there.
Yep.
At Dracut High School in Richardson Middle School, a World of Difference peer mentoring group will be established. The Anti-Defamation League, or ADL, program, operating in over 100 schools in New England, including a number in the Merrimack Valley, focuses on recognizing the attitudes and beliefs, that attitudes and beliefs affect actions, and that each of us can have an impact on others, and ultimately on the world in which we live. Interesting. That was my immediate response when I first saw that. You can take it down now. And so I decided, you know, that sounds a little peculiar. Let's look into this and see what it's all about. So I sat down this morning on my typewriter, clickety-clack, did a little background information on this. And for those of you who don't know what the ADL was, it was formed in September, so its anniversary is coming up, of 1913. And their mission statement comes right from the website, you can look it up yourself, is, quote, to stop the defamation of Jewish people and to secure justice and fair treatment to all, end quote. All right. I can support that. I think that's a good cause,
Right.
you know, fight anti-Semitism and discrimination against all. So I said, you know what, let's see their track record. Let's see what they've done, okay? So in the 20th century, they were very busy. They fought against anti-Semitism during the First World War. They challenged the KKK in many ways throughout the 1920s and their anti-Semitic beliefs. They actually uncovered many Nazi organizations across the U.S. during World War II. They fought against Henry Ford for his anti-Semitic beliefs. And they are very pro-Israel even to this day. And, you know, at this point I was saying, you know what, maybe they aren't such a bad organization to have in the school. This sounds really good. I can support this. Well, then we get to the ADL of today, of the 21st century, and all I can say is, how have they taken a change? The current leader or president or whatever you want to call it of the ADL is none other than, drumroll please, Jonathan Greenblatt. Now,
what is he? Who's
for those of you who
Greenblatt?
don't know, Jonathan Greenblatt he was a staff member, cabinet member of the Obama administration.
Yeah.
Isn't that a little surprising? Wow, who would have thought that?
Yeah.
So it turns out, actually, that over the past few years, the ADL has been losing support of its Jewish followers, mainly because they've been moving away from Jewish beliefs, you know, what they were based on. And a good example of that is the Affordable Care Act, right? When the Affordable Care Act was you know, a hot topic back in its day. One of the main things with it was the contraceptive mandate, which was something the ADL surprisingly supported, which the Jewish community seemed to freak out over, you know, understandably, because doesn't that limit religious freedom?
Correct.
And aren't you a religious organization? So why is a religious organization supporting anti-religious rhetoric? That sounds a little weird to you, doesn't it? It sounds weird to me.
Yeah, because they understand that as you limit the religious freedom of one religion,
Isn't
then
it gonna spread?
And then
Right.
they all start to fall.
But isn't that what they're doing in China? Limiting the amount of people you can have in the country?
It's 1984, getting worse and worse. So I decided to look into, I guess when you bring them to the school, they give you a handbook, you have classes, and there are rules and regulations that the school has to follow, right? So I looked into the handbook, right? I didn't get an exact copy of it, but parents in California where this has been implemented in schools have spoken out against this, and they're trying to get it out of their schools. And let's see what they say here that the handbook mentions inside. So the handbook teaches students that microaggressions, like small individual bigotry acts that happen on a day-to-day basis, cannot happen to white people and can only be committed by white students. Another point that they have, which I find interesting, is this pyramid, which I know, John, you were very excited to discuss this pyramid. If we can put up the first version of the pyramid, please, and then I'll read off what each level entails. Okay, so basically, folks, this is a pyramid that comes in the handbook of the ADL. So basically, they're saying that at the bottom level, the least offensive, I suppose, form of discrimination you can have is a biased attitude, right? And if you go up the ladder, you can see that you go from biased attitude to genocide. So I said, you know what? That seems awfully harsh and a little extreme, doesn't it? So I took an issue that I see today, the hatred against police officers, right? And I read the description of the pyramid and what each level entails, and I tried to match it up the best we could. So if we can go to the second pyramid, please. So let's take a look here. So at the bottom, biased attitudes. We have anti-police organizations forming, such as BLM, Antifa. You have people trying to justify the fear of policemen by calling them all crazy brutes. Let's see, let's move up a level to acts of bias. We have people using terms such as ACAB and restaurants refusing to serve police officers simply because of their uniform. Systemic discrimination. Let's see. We have an unfair representation of policemen in media. And in fact, some schools have removed resource officers altogether. And that yellow star right there shows where we are currently. Bias-motivated violence. As you know, across the nation recently, we've had assault of policemen in their vehicles being destroyed and manipulated. So according to this chart, apparently we're going to have a genocide of policemen on our hands.
We're one step away.
We're like on DEFCON 4 here. Doesn't that sound a little concerning?
Right, it does.
So if we applied this chart to every single town, shoot, I think Dracut's on the verge of its own genocide. Lock your doors, lock your windows. I don't know what the heck's going on here.
What do you think, Gordy? What do you think of all this research that this
That's
young man did?
a little crazy.
Is
I
it?
know. I think what he did is great. But
awesome.
I think this is all folds into the critical race theory.
Right.
And they're pushing that agenda across all the schools. All the public schools are getting this CRT, and I just think it's absurd. Judge people for who they are, not for the color of their skin or their race.
Well,
So-
what makes
content
it
of the character.
just to wrap up?
Yeah.
What makes it worse is that apparently the contract that the ADL signs with every school they go to is that any act of discipline in the school that involves racism or bigotry, that case has to be reported to the ADL. So is this organization, this third party,
The
building up
Gestapo.
information and files on your students and your children?
Isn't,
The Gestapo. This really, I'm telling you,
isn't that what they did in Nazi Germany?
that's what they've done in the Soviet Union, Nazi Germany.
I mean, I'm hoping that the ADL, doesn't forget their purpose.
What I want to know is who pushed this?
Yeah.
Who got up and said, you know what, I think we need the ADL in Dracut? Was it a school committee member?
Well,
Did they decide this before or after the mask mandate?
No, I don't think it's a school committee member. You give them way too much credit to do that.
That's
to,
true.
To be
That's
doing
true.
that, I think it's some bureaucrat that's done that. I don't think a school committee member sits back and thinks about, well, let's bring in CRT. I think it's or let's bring in the ADL. I think it's somebody that's out there, that's in the school realm, that has been part of this whole indoctrination thing for years. I sent a video to both of you, I think, the other day, maybe this morning or yesterday, of a teacher in California that was caught by the Judicial Watch under under a make-believe camera, and I wish I had time to put it together, but I didn't have enough time to bring it on tonight. But he talks about how it's been an unorganized event for people like him to push this agenda of Antifa, has an Antifa flag in his classroom.
Wow.
So that brings us to the next thing I wanted to talk about, Rich. There is a little thing going on at the high school currently that we're not going to expose yet. But
Yes.
give us a little tickle about what we're going to talk about, because
Yes.
just a little.
All I will say is that we have a person at the Dracut High School who took up an interesting hobby.
Okay.
That's all I'll say. I think if I said any more, I'd give it away instantly.
Right.
We're going to get into that more in the future,
But
should the occasion arise.
we are currently searching it out, and
Yes.
we'll have a report on our next show.
Hopefully.
In 2 weeks. Hopefully we'll have something to break on that. And if we have it before, folks, we'll bring it to you on What's Happening Dracut Facebook page. You can catch a lot of stuff on that because we tickle a lot of stuff coming up out of that. But I want to segue off now into the next subject that we need to talk about Dracut politics and happenings, and that's about Phil's favorite subject, the Dracut Board of Selectmen.
Why is it my favorite subject?
Well, Phil, you've run for selectmen.
I know, but I'm trying to break the habit, geez.
I know, I hear you. Well, it's my favorite subject for sure, because it's the one board that uses the sanctity of their own chambers and the sanctity of their own position to exact political retribution.
Absolutely.
They do it. And they don't only use it during a political season, during a campaign where a lot of things come out, but they sit in what is supposed to be the holy grail of the chambers. I know when I was on the Board of Selectmen here, you walk in the chambers, it's almost like a courtroom. You're hoping that it's, there's solemnness about it. Mm-hmm. There's certain things you don't say on the floor of the Board of Selectmen. Yeah. But you got guys like Joe DeRocco that are going to stand up there and exact his revenge on guys like Phil.
Oh, sure. You have the gang of three.
Right. And what do they do, Phil? What do they do?
As you said, we were having an issue here at Dracut Access Television. We were putting in a cooking set, and you'll see a little bit of that as we get back into the show.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, the building commissioner shows up. Well, I heard there was some construction going on here. It's
you're right.
Well, where'd you hear that? There's no construction. We're putting in an exhaust vent.
And I did a little bit more investigations. I called them.
I know.
I called them, and I wanted to know what the story was, you know? And he said from higher ups.
Yep.
It came from higher ups, or it came from, you know,
Something like
above, is the word he said. And then when I started mentioning names, he got all upset and nervous and wasn't, you know, started backing
We know
off.
where it came from.
Yeah, we know exactly where it came from, and that's what they do in this town. That's what they do. They have a history of it. And we're going to call them out. I don't care. I'm calling them out
Yeah.
every time I can.
Well, I think I've said to you, I've said to a number of people, anytime that somebody from Dracut gives me a call and is looking to have some architectural work done,
Okay.
I usually say, are you sure you want to hire me? Because there's town baggage that comes along with it. Isn't that a shame?
Exactly. Well, we have a caller, believe it or not. Let's see who it is. Linda, you're on the phone. Linda, how are you tonight?
Yeah, this is Linda.
Hi, Linda. How are you?
Turn your TV off.
You can't be on the phone listening to the TV. You got to turn the TV off and talk to us through the phone.
Okay, I'm going to do that.
Great. Okay, Linda, what's your reason for your call?
I want to say that I'm for the mask for the school people, the kids, and that's all over with. But what about doing something for the seniors?
Oh, exactly. Like in terms of, you know, you're sitting here, you're watching a show with at least 2 members that have done something for seniors, but the town stopped it dead in its track because it wasn't on their political agenda, Linda. Phil Thibault and I were part of a coalition put together while I was on the Board of Selectmen that went out and had the town purchase through CPC money the Richardson Farm property on Bridge Street.
Yep.
Right? It butts Bridge Street. And we had a plan in place with members of the then Housing Authority that was going to use state and federal monies to build 60 units of elderly housing. It would have been the last project built by the state and federal government in that concept to affect 30%ers. Now, you're going to get an affordable housing unit there, 60 units, that is going to cost somebody probably around 60 to 70% of their monthly income.
Absolutely.
So that's one thing, Linda.
Okay.
Is that what you're talking about, something like that?
That's fine. But I'm talking about, what about getting the seniors back into the senior center?
Oh.
Masking at the
Mandatory
masking at the senior center.
They're not even in the senior center yet?
No, well, that
we're
Linda, I know that they've been having trouble with the building. So there was a roofing and siding project that went on last year. There's an HVAC system that's going on that should be starting, I think, probably towards the end of the month. So that'll take the senior center essentially offline for a short while also. Then they had an accident with a deer running through some windows.
Really?
That they needed to clean things up. And so there's been a lot of issues there, but I know through the Permanent Building Committee, which I sit on, we're trying to get that up and operational as quickly as possible.
Well, so Linda, does that answer?
What about the selectmen doing something for us?
Yeah, so she wants mandatory masking at the senior center. Why
do?
can't they do that?
Oh, you want that, Linda? Are you there, Linda? Okay.
Yeah, I'm here.
Are you in favor of masking at the senior center? Is that what you called for?
I'm saying the seniors don't go in.
They haven't been able to go in. How would you feel about it
No.
if they opened it up and said you had to be masked?
I would wear my mask.
There you go. And that's your right to do that if you want to go there.
Right.
So thanks a lot for calling, Linda.
I hope we answered your questions.
Hope
Yeah,
we-
maybe your call will make a change, make a difference.
Yeah, maybe we'll look into that to see why they're not. We'll put that on our radar. Thanks again for calling us, Linda.
Do something about the 2 selectmen that you don't like.
What's that?
Do something about the selectmen you don't like.
We're trying to. I hope
Lin-
you don't like them either.
Linda, there is nothing we can do that the voters need to do.
Right.
That's right. Exactly. So,
Okay, bye.
thank you so
Thank
much
you,
for
Linda.
calling, Linda. Thank you so much for calling. But we wanted to get into a little bit more. about that. Joe DeRocco and the Board of Selectmen has another open meeting violation. You know, Joe DeRocco for a few weeks or a few meetings was bragging about how he was having a subcommittee meeting with the attorney and Heather Santiago Hutchings,
Yep.
and they were meeting on the contract with DATV, which I, as a member of the public, I was interested in finding out what the story is on where those meetings are being held and where they're being posted. So I went and researched and tried to find it, and I couldn't find it anywhere on the website, which that website is not the most friendly website to go on anyways. But I found out that I couldn't find it anywhere.
Well, because it was being held at Nunya.
Yeah.
Nunya Business.
None of your business, exactly. No, you're exactly right, Phil. You're exactly right. Nunya was very much involved here. But Mr. DeRocco has this propensity to not follow the law in a lot of different ways. He also mentioned many a time about having a public safety subcommittee meeting, and I put a FOIA request in for all those meetings minutes. You know, there's none. And they're telling me that they never held any. So now they're saying to me, well, you know, him going down to the police station or to the fire station and holding a meeting and then calling it a subcommittee. If you call it a subcommittee meeting and there's members of the Board of Selectmen that's on that committee meeting, that's a subcommittee meeting. You need to post that stuff.
Absolutely.
So anyways, I researched it after the last couple of meetings and I couldn't find any. I put a FOIA request in. So lo and behold, the time was going away. I went on vacation. I came back, and 2 days after my vacation, I said, geez, the time must be coming close on that FOIA request. So I look it up, and sure enough, lo and behold, it was that day. It was a Friday. And who do I get a phone call from? I get a phone call from Jim Hall, the town council. And he opens his conversation with me relative to that as saying, oh, I'm calling you, John. We haven't talked in a long time. We had some friendly he's a good guy. I talk to him, occasionally, and we have good conversations and what have you, and I liked him when I was on the Board of Selectmen. So he says, I'm calling about the two meetings that you required about that were not posted. And I stopped him dead in his track, and I says, oh, so Jim, you're admitting that they were not posted? He says, absolutely, they were not posted. But we're correcting that, and going forward, they're going to be posted. And I says, and what about the minutes? He says, well, I am currently involved with, I've been charged with getting the minutes together. This is the town attorney. Now, there's a person that takes minutes at these meetings, right?
Supposed to be.
Supposed to be.
Shannon,
So why is the town council doing the minutes? Well, he said they asked me to put the minutes together according to the notes. I said,
What notes?
That's far, and that is really, I mean, it's work product. I probably could FOIA it and make some hay and get it, but it might be an uphill battle to get the work product, so to speak. But I did get a letter back from who I submitted it to, Kathleen Graham. I get a letter back saying that they were working on it, and Jim asked me if he could have extra time, which he did, and I did get the draft of the meetings, and I did read them, but lo and behold, there was another meeting last night of the subcommittee. And that one, folks, was posted. So what's happening, Dracut, and John Zimini has accomplished something that we know that Mr. DeRocco didn't accomplish, or the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, Allison Janess, who is in conflict all over the place, folks, all over the place. Sooner or later, she's going to get caught with her hands in a cookie jar, and it's not going to be pretty when she does. But the state's going to come down on. But I have a video about the meeting that was held, I believe, last night. We'll show that meeting right now. It's interesting because I went to the meeting and I videotaped it. Go ahead.
We'll open the meeting. I don't know if Jim was going to read over this stuff. I mean, we looked it over. I mean, I'm okay with
I
it.
reviewed all of them and pretty much, what I would expect the minutes to read. I read them over. They look good to me.
Yeah.
I know that you sent them out to
I read the minutes.
everybody.
Yeah.
No, I'm good with it.
So why probably should have a motion
I'll make a
and a
motion to
second
approve.
on each one of them, and then you'll probably three of them. I think
Yeah.
there's 3 meetings.
May 18th, the first one.
Yeah.
Make a motion to approve May 18th.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
All right.
June 16, make a motion.
Second.
Favor?
Aye.
August 11, make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I think that's it. And only 3.
Only three. Only three. Thank you. We just have to make a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Aye.
Aye. Sorry, go long.
Did you catch that, Gordy? Did you catch what was going on during
That
that
didn't
meeting?
was this a subcommittee for, what was it for? Because it looked like all they did is approve the minutes.
Right. It was a subcommittee for the so-called agreement between DATV and the town. But they weren't there to talk about it because they didn't post that they were going to discuss that. And I'm wondering if they got word that I was going to be watching to make sure, because you know damn right well if I wasn't in that room, there would have been discussion. That would be off the record because nobody else is around, right?
Well, knowing the previous selectmen meeting where they had discussed a few items that they wanted added to it, you would have think that it would have been discussed at the subcommittee meeting about adding them in and culling the whole document together.
What stood out about that meeting that you might have culled from it, aside from what the purpose of the meeting was? What did you cull from that?
To me, they almost seemed afraid to speak.
Okay?
I don't know what, they were very quiet, they were very awkward. I guarantee you it was because you were in the room. They were,
was?
Yeah, they were all fun, no play, and we know that those things are usually a hell of a lot of play and a hell of not much work. So,
Phil, did you catch anything on that?
The thing that I found that strikes me as remarkable is how much Attorney Hall spoke.
Bingo. And what was he doing, Phil?
He was essentially, it sounded like he was essentially giving them direction.
Yes.
And was he running the meeting? Mm-hmm. You just
Because he
witnessed-
asked for a motion and for a second.
You just witnessed the reason why Joe DiRocco, in his 16 plus years on the Board of Selectmen, has not been the chairman. Because he would be an abomination as chairman. Unless somebody was holding him by the hand. Kind of like
It's called laziness.
Kind of like our
That's what it's
president.
called.
And it's called laziness. But it's also lack of knowledge. You see how
Yeah.
uncomfortable he was?
Yeah.
He didn't know what to do. He didn't know, open the meeting, say something. We open the meeting and we're here for what
You
purpose?
think he would be, how many years has he been on the board? You think he would know how to run a meeting and
All I can say is
the decorum of a meeting?
shame on the electorate of Dracut that they didn't come out to vote in the last election. 9.5% of the electorate
Wow.
of nearly 18,000 people came out. 9% came out to vote. And ladies and gentlemen, that's the kind of government you're going to get if you don't vote.
Well, it's been said that a democracy is you get the government that you deserve.
That's right. That's right. But he couldn't have been more uncomfortable
No,
running
that's
that meeting.
absolutely.
So, but Jim Hall has already had to apologize once for an open meeting violation that you put in, right?
Which one was that?
Was that?
There was one that they, if you don't forget, there was one that also happened at the town meeting against me.
What's that?
That's when I
Yes.
proposed the change to the CPC, and a member of the town, actually someone that worked for the town, was using town resources to print against my article,
against your-
and they were passing it out to people as they walked in the door. I said, "You can't do that. What are you doing?"
Yeah. And what happened to that person? You know who the person is, right?
I do,
You
and
remember who
I
the
went
person
in front of the Board of Selectmen, and I said, "You haven't even offered an apology."
No.
I mean, I've never in my life seen someone go and put up an article, and then people are passing out articles against an article that's put up there. I've never seen it in my life.
Well, yeah, and plus use town resources to do it.
Correct.
But Phil, not Phil, I'm going to let Phil sit on the side here. I'm going to go to the young stud down
Oh,
there.
no.
The young stud. Do you know what the punishment is for violation of the open meeting law?
can I take a big guess on this one?
Yes.
Nothing.
0.
There we go, I
Apology.
got it.
That's it. apology, correct it and apologize.
Wow.
That's it. You know?
And sometimes they don't even do that.
And they don't even do that. They dance around it. You know, they dance around the whole thing, and it
Well,
doesn't.
you know, no matter how many people speak out, it just means a hill of beans.
Yeah. Now I could put an open meeting violation into the Board of Selectmen because it goes to them to first be adjudicated, and if they don't act on it, then it goes to the Secretary of State, and then the Secretary of State will then come down on the town to say, you haven't answered them. I mean, really come down on them. You haven't answered them.
Do you
And then
want?
if they
Do you
answer-
want me to whack my finger at you?
You want me to put this in writing as
There
to
should
why?
be, there should be a fine.
It should, absolutely.
Should be a fine.
And I am contemplating asking our local representatives, our Senator Feingold, as well as our state rep, Colleen Gary, who brags all the time about putting forth citizen-initiated referendum or citizen.
She should put up. She should put up.
I'm going to ask for an amendment to the open meeting law, and any violation comes along with a fine. It could
and
be
maybe they go
graduated.
maybe $500 for the first one, $1,000 for the second one, $5,000
And
for a
it has to
third.
be personally paid for by the person who's the chair of the
Well,
committee
I don't know if that
or
would
the chair of the chair of the board, and the members of that board who allow it to go through. Because you have members of the board that would sit there and not say anything because they don't want to upset the apple cart. Or you might have members sitting there that doesn't know what the laws are
right.
because they're new to the board, didn't know what they are. But you put some teeth into that stuff. But of course, the legislation.
I think, yeah, I
doesn't
mean,
want
I
to do
think information requests can hold the records keeper personally liable.
Yes.
From my understanding.
The
So-
RAO, the Records Authority Office.
So we do know who that person is that made the.
Yes.
But we're not going to go there and expose that person tonight.
Nope.
We're going to let that person. I'll just give you a little hint. We're going to let that person just fade off into the sunset. How's that, Phil? Was that a good segue?
That was a good
Was that a good segue? All right. So my
But
next.
the town did. Jim Duggan did
Well, they just-
apologize to me after.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the damage is done. If people like you and Phil and John Zimini are not there looking, and God rest his soul, like Roger Daigle, if we're not around to hold feet to the fire, they run roughshod. They'll do whatever they want. There are other things, folks, coming down the pike that I can't talk about because they're under investigation right now, let's say, at the state level and at other levels that I just can't talk about right now. But there are other things being investigated that will be coming down hopefully soon. And when they do, I'll be sitting here proud as a peacock, saying why. So let's talk about why I'm not always right, but a lot of times I'm right. So a few months ago, during the last election, I brought up a breaking news story about Jesse Forcier moving out of town, or possibly going to be moving out of town because he sold his house. And we went through the whole thing, and everybody knows where that went. And he ended up moving in a much smaller house, which I am sure that his family cannot be happy that they're living in that particular house on Turgeon Street, I think it is, right? Which brings me to another thing. Why is it so difficult, Phil, for anyone to find where a public official lives? Or, for that matter, how to reach a public official in an elected position without having to go to a town website or whether and send a email to that website. I'll tell you right now, I know Joe DeRocco doesn't have a computer. I mean, he's mentioned it millions of times that he doesn't have a computer. So if you want to email Joe DeRocco, it's going into a Dropbox.
Well, he has one provided by the town.
Yeah.
They sit
But
in front
do
of
you
him.
think
And
do you think he looks at it?
I don't know. But
You think he answers them? Let's ask Richard Silvio if Joe DeRocco answers phone calls or emails. You had an
Well,
experience with that.
in 2 words, where's Joe? Where is he? Well, you know, that makes a lot of sense now. I've wrote many of emails, and now I know where they've gone, right?
Yeah.
The suggestion bin over there in the corner, marked recycling.
Go in the
Okay.
Dropbox. It goes right in the Dropbox. But you can't get it. When I ran, and even if you go to Lawrence and you look at all their political signs, they have their own phone. They have a phone number on the political sign. It's usually their personal phone number.
Yeah.
And if you want to reach a candidate or reach a person who's in public office, you can reach them through their own phone. Not in Dracut. You can't reach them. God forbid. You should be able to hear from constituency. We just want your vote. Then go away. Don't bother me.
Yeah.
Don't
Just
worry,
want
I
your
got
vote,
your back.
And
they
then
say.
and I got your back, right. They don't want to do that.
I might
Well,
have a knife in the hand, but I got
That's
your
too
back.
bad. But interestingly enough, the Westford Sunset newspaper had in their paper this week that, and I don't read it, but I get phone calls from people telling me about it and messages. And in the column, I guess it said that it mentioned my name.
Essentially corroborated that Mr. Zimini was correct.
Yeah. So what was the gist of that whole thing?
So it had gone into Jesse was building a house, I believe, in Methuen, and he's planning on moving. So he is planning on resigning at some time.
Or fulfilling
when it's convenient to him, I guess.
yeah.
But he was not going to be around for the next election.
Right. So that brings a whole new thing. It opens up a whole, it opens the floodgates for people that are going to run. But I'm going to tell you this right now. Tony Archinsky is up for re-election, as was Jesse. And Tony Archinsky will be overwhelmingly, in my opinion, re-elected. What say you?
Absolutely. There's a guy who really stands up for the resident of Dracut.
Right.
Just a great guy.
Yeah, and people, he brings out things in a manner that's a lot less, I don't know, disruptive than I would. You know,
Abrasive? He's not
abrasive. Maybe abrasive. You think
He's
I'm
not.
abrasive?
No, he's not abrasive.
No, he's not abrasive. But when I was on the Board of Selectmen, I'd bring things up and I'd talk about things. But I would.
Oh, I
be
used
more,
to love watching. I told you that
Much
when I
more
first met you.
forceful. Yeah.
It was fun to watch.
Yeah.
Now they're boring.
But people can still go back and look at those things.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
About the day I took on a
Oh,
couple
those
people.
those were good.
Those were fun.
Let's have a
fun
Throwback
times.
Thursday on the Facebook page.
You got you know something, Richard? There's an
Me and my big
assignment.
mouth.
There's an assignment for you, Richard. Go back and find some of those Board of Selectmen meetings back in the day when I was on. Now that's almost,
In your prime.
it's almost, yeah, in my prime. Even towards the end, I did a couple of good things on the way out the door too. All right? A former fire chief came into crosshairs at one time too. But anyways, to go back, to move on from that, but Tony Archinsky will be unbeatable. He will, but now Tony, do not take that as a mantra or a pat on the back and say, well, I don't have to work, because as far as I'm concerned, I always topped the ticket in the 3 elections that I won, and I always ran scared. I ran like I was going to lose, because there are forces out there that want to get you, Tony.
Well,
there's forces on
because of
Lakeview
who-
Ave that want you out.
Because of who you've supported in the past.
Oh,
also.
absolutely, and that's going to be one of the biggest things, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And they're going to be coming after him because of the support of you, because he talks to me, and he's not he supported me in the past, and he's on the outside, and I think Heather Santiago Hutchins is also on the
I
outside.
think so.
I think they're on a need-to-know basis. It's, and that's too bad, because a different person would be at their throats every day of the week. But it does wear thin on doing that too. Being the guy on the 4-1. I know Tammy Dristolaris was on the end of the 4-1 votes many nights, as well as I was. And if you had won, you would have been on the 4-1 side a lot too. Although if you won, it would have changed the makeup of the board quite rapidly. But so Tony Archinsky is one of the candidates that I think will be unbeatable in this next election. He's well known, well liked. He's around town. He attends things. Unlike many of the other ones, they don't come to it. I mean, other than Tony and Heather, I haven't seen many of them at many functions, unless they're chosen functions. But one member of the school committee has been making overtures about running, Allison Volpe. She's said it a couple of times, said it during the last campaign, that she was thinking about it the last election season, and especially if there's an open seat. So I think she will be a candidate. What say you, Phil?
I think so too. I mean, there's been exploratory discussions on it,
Right.
and I think she will. I think she would be a good candidate.
Right. And my thought is, get out of the box fast. Say you're announcing, keep people, there's going to be more than one candidate. There's going to be more than 2 candidates. Trust me. I know that the people up there on Lakeview Ave are already spinning their wheels, and we know of one candidate that's going to be coming out of the box, and he's their chosen candidate, and we know who that is.
Yeah.
Do you know who that is?
Well, I
Do
know
you
there's.
who that is?
I know
would
they're
guess
scraping
Brian
the bottom of
Jeunesse,
the
but-
barrel.
Not Brian Jeunesse, no. Not
I would
Brian
guess.
Jeunesse?
I don't know.
Brian Jeunesse is lucky he's on the board, he's on the state Republican committee only because he's on that committee because nobody else ran. That's basically it. Because if anybody ran against him, he'd get beaten. But nobody wants that state stuff like that. Talk about a piece of swell.